Today is Monday, November 9th, 2020. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Breaking news. Donald Trump's one of his spiritual advisors, one of his black spiritual advisors, Bishop Harry Jackson, has died. Some reports say it could be from coronavirus. Speaking of coronavirus, Secretary of HUD, Dr. Ben Carson, he has tested positive for coronavirus as well. All of this in the midst of Donald Trump denying the reality that Joe Biden has beaten him for the president. They are desperately trying to go to court to sue, throwing out all kinds of allegations. It got so crazy on Fox News that they even just cut off Kayleigh McEnany when she was lying on television. We'll break it all down for you. Folks, Georgia, all eyes are on Georgia as they have two critical runoff positions for the United States Senate, John Ossoff, as well as Pastor Raphael Warnock. Eva Longoria had a lot to say about black women voters. Let's just say it did not sit well with some sisters. We'll also talk with activist Rosa Clemente about what took place. And 80% of white evangelical Christians continue to support Donald Trump. What does that say, though, about them accepting of racism? We'll chat with Reverend Dr. William J. Barber, as well as Reverend Dr. Barbara Skinner Williams. Plus, the Arkansas police chief who tweeted "Death to Marxist Democrats" no longer has a job. Plus, a Fit Live Win segment, how to lose weight holistically. Folks, it's a jam-packed show. It's time to bring the funk. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
All right, folks, some breaking news. Bishop Harry Jackson, one of Donald Trump's spiritual advisors, a frequent visitor to the White House, has died. According to Religion News Service, his wife found him dead this morning. Now, there is considerable speculation that Bishop Jackson passed away due to coronavirus. He was often on this show. You see the video of him there. He had lost he had lost a lot of weight. We were talking to him on the show. He had just a couple of years ago had taken up swimming and first time learning how to swim, and he said he was getting himself healthy that way. We also were supposed to interview him on this show a couple of months ago for a new book, but the day he was supposed to be interviewed was also the day we did our Chadwick Boseman special when he passed away. That, of course, was in August. And so the statement posted on the church's website, Hope Christian Church in Beltsville, Maryland, said, "It is with a heavy heart that we notify you that our beloved Bishop Harry R. Jackson has transitioned to be with the Lord on November 9th, 2020. Please pray for the Jackson family's comfort and respect their right to privacy at this time." Now, the reason people are speculating on the issue of coronavirus because Harry Jackson was at that, Bishop Harry Jackson was at that super spreader event at the White House when Amy Coney Barrett was nominated to the Supreme Court. That took place on September 26th. He and a number of other faith leaders were there. Now, again, remember, a couple of people who were there tested positive for COVID-19. In addition, he spoke, of course, at the Republican National Convention. He last spoke at the church. This was a video that took place on November 3rd. On November 3rd, where Bishop Harry Jackson last spoke. This was a video that he released just 6 days ago. Go ahead and take it, please.
Give thanks to him and bless his name, or worship him. So the idea is there's a progression. I give thanks to God. It's like turning off the street into a gate of a property. And then I praise God. It is talking about what God has done, how he's been faithful in the past. That often catapults me further into the manifest presence of God. And then as I continue with this overarching sense of thankfulness, I can once again thank and worship him. Give thanks to him
Again,
and praise
it
his
has
name.
not been stated to us that he passed from coronavirus. No cause is known as of yet. This also happens today, the same day that, of course, Dr. Ben Carson tested positive for coronavirus. Dr. Ben Carson, of course, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under Donald Trump. Just last week, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows tested positive for coronavirus. David Bossie, who is leading Trump's legal fight when it comes to the election, he also has tested positive. Carson was at the White House on Tuesday night, on election night, when Meadows was there walking around the White House, talking with others in and out of the Oval Office, even though he had tested positive for coronavirus. Like so many folks around Trump, they refused to wear masks. They refused to do any social distancing. And so we will certainly let you know once we get more details. So again, the breaking news, Bishop Harry Jackson, a prominent black conservative evangelicals, huge supporter of Donald Trump, dead today, found dead at their home by his wife. And so once we have more details, we'll be able to share those details with you. All right, folks, let's go to the election where over the weekend, Joe Biden claimed the necessary states to become the next president of the United States. He, of course, was declared the winner in Pennsylvania. He's still leading in Arizona, declared the winner in Nevada as well, and is leading in Georgia. The Trump folks are fighting vigorously to contest the election. They've gone to court 5 different times. They are 0 for 5 on each one of those occasions. You're seeing how desperate they are. Let me tell you how desperate they are. The head of the General Service, here you have an agency that is designed that oversees all federal buildings, and the head of the GSA signs off on freeing up the money for a transition. Well, she has refused to sign a letter saying the election is still in doubt. The Trump campaign and the Trump White House are complete in denial, fighting every effort, do not want to. Trump has not conceded. Not only that, Senator Mitch McConnell came out today on the Senate floor throwing gasoline on this deal as well, refusing to recognize Joe Biden as the president-elect. That's what you're dealing with when you look at these really mad, upset Republicans all over the country, how they are just beside themselves that Joe Biden has beaten Donald Trump. Now here's the one that's just so hilarious. I give a perfect example. Here in our building, there's an African immigrant brother, huge Donald Trump supporter. And I came in and he was talking about, oh, they cheated. And I said, okay, so explain to me how they cheated in the presidency, but they didn't steal the Senate. But they didn't steal the additional House seats. But they didn't steal some down ballot races. Do you understand how absolutely crazy these people are? They are trying to throw out every possible conspiracy theory. I mean, it's just laughable to listen to them throw all of these conspiracy theories out. I just sit there, and it's unbelievable. Let me tell you how bad this thing got. Today, Kayleigh McEnany had a presidential briefing. The folks at Fox News even were like, you know what? These are way too many lies for us. Watch this.
We want every legal vote to be counted, and we want every illegal vote to be...
Well, I just think we have to be very clear. She's charging, the other side is welcoming fraud and welcoming illegal voting. Unless she has more details to back that up, I can't in good countenance continue showing you this. I want to make sure that maybe they do have something to back that up, but that's an explosive charge to make, that the other side is effectively rigging and cheating.
I mean, literally, Fox News said, y'all live too cray-cray. I mean, that is what you're dealing with when you're dealing with these people who are besides themselves. Now, keep in mind, Hillary Clinton, when she lost 4 years ago by a smaller margin, let me repeat that. She lost by a smaller margin than Donald Trump, conceded the next day. Now, look, I don't need Donald Trump to concede to know he got his ass whooped. But that's what you're dealing with. Here's Mitch McConnell today on the Senate floor. Listen to this nonsense.
According to preliminary results, voters across the nation elected and re-elected Republican senators to a degree that actually stunned prognosticators. Likewise, the American people seem to have reacted to House Democrats' radicalism and obstruction by shrinking the Speaker's majority and electing more Republicans. And then there's the presidential race. Obviously, no states have yet certified their election results. We have at least 1 or 2 states that are already on track for a recount. And I believe the president may have legal challenges underway in at least 5 states. The core principle here is not complicated. In the United States of America, all legal ballots must be counted. Any illegal ballots must not be counted. The process should be transparent or observable by all sides, and the courts are here to work through concerns. Our institutions are actually built for this. We have the system in place to consider concerns, and President Trump is 100% within his rights to look into allegations of irregularities and weigh his legal options.
I'm done with him. I'm done with him. Let me bring on my panel, Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver, political analyst, Michael Brown, former vice chair, DNC Finance Committee, Reverend Shane Harris, founder of the People's Alliance for Justice. I am absolutely cracking up, Michael. The day after the election in 2016, Mitch McConnell congratulated Donald Trump on winning. These suckers, oh my God, this theft, and they stole. I mean, the allegations of theft are so hilarious. Now all of a sudden they're claiming a city worker in Detroit says that they saw them changing ballots and they were encouraging people to vote for Joe Biden. I mean, they're trying to throw everything out here. It ain't gonna work.
Well, it's the definition of sore losers, obviously, and it's unfortunate that they can't move past this. Whether it's a tough race like in the year 2000 with Gore Bush, clearly all of us, at least on this side of the aisle, were extremely upset. But Gore set the tone by conceding after the Supreme Court made their decision, and the country moved on. Same with 4 years ago. You don't think we were all upset that Secretary Clinton lost? Of course we were. But after she conceded, the country moved on, tried to give this guy a chance. He blew it. It was arguably will be considered the worst president in American history. But besides that, the country and mature people and adults made some statements, really conceding, and people moved on. Clearly, they're not ready to do that. Clearly, and to keep this the director of GSA from signing off on the inauguration committees is a darn shame. But one more point, Roland, I know you want to go to everybody else. On a personal note to Pastor Jackson, who's from here in the DMV, he and I had a lot of respect for him, didn't agree with him. He and I butted heads a few years ago during the marriage equality discussion here in Washington. I was one of the co-sponsors when I was on the city council, and he was one of the chief opponents to the marriage equality. So he and I butted heads, but I had a lot of respect for him, and Godspeed to he and his family.
Avis, to listen to the absolute whining of these people. I mean, you talk about loser. To listen to watch them just. I mean, they're just. If y'all want comedy, go to the Twitter feed of Charlie Kirk. Oh my God, Senator Kamala Harris is the worst person in the world. I mean, and every time he tweets, I just start laughing at him. You got Geraldo out there with his whining as well. You got Megyn Kelly, of White Santa Claus, is just whining as well. I mean, this is how incredibly childish these people are. They just can't believe that America says, Donald Trump, go to hell.
I think it's beyond childish. These people are dangerous. I mean, let's just say what they are. They are dangerous. This administration, we have seen a huge record uptick in the number of hate crimes and the number of white supremacist groups. He speaks to extremists in this nation to the degree that it leads to violent actions. And the way that they are lying And let's just put it on the table. This is a coordinated, predestined lie that they planned. And it was planned from the moment that Donald Trump started to cast doubt on the legitimacy of mail-in ballots during a pandemic, while also telling his minions to go and vote on election day. At the same time, that was coordinated with Republican state legislators, I believe, who passed laws to say that they wouldn't even start counting the ballots until after the election. And so they knew coming into the election that all of the ballots would not be cast on election night. We knew from reporting that he would claim victory on election night, knowing that millions of ballots had not been cast, and that's exactly what he did. So all this fake news that they are perpetuating by claiming illegalities only in Black cities, by the way. So they're not focusing on places where they would have an advantage in any of these rural areas, but they're focusing on Detroit, they're focusing on Philadelphia, they're focusing on Atlanta, for example. So they're trying to disenfranchise us through their lies, while at the same time riling up their minions who are dangerous people. I mean, some of these people just tried to kidnap a darn governor. So this is, to me, it's more serious than they just can't handle the truth. I'm saying that this is a criminal element that has taken over our political system. They are attempting to coordinate a coup, and in lieu of their success, which I don't believe they'll be successful because their lawsuits are just so ridiculous, they are trying to undercut the legitimacy of the next administration, making it that much more hard for them to govern. This is dangerous, it is criminal, and it needs to be called out in every way possible, as early and as often as possible, until we get the rightful administration in office, and that is the Biden-Harris administration.
The thing that is just crazy to me, Shane, is these people are so unhinged. I mean, you already saw it today. Donald Trump fired via Twitter the Secretary of Defense, Mike Esper. I mean, this is what you're dealing with. I mean, look, I'm telling you right now, he's going to fire the head of the FBI, Christopher Wray. He's going to fire lots of people. The head of White House personnel is literally telling people, don't you dare look for jobs.
Yeah, no, Roland, this is not only criminal, not only is it dangerous, it's fraudulent. This president clearly does not understand the electoral process. You know, 2008, when Barack Obama was elected, and I was just a younger man at that time, experiencing all of this at 17 years old, watching the first Black president of America walk across the stage. This is the same man who launched a campaign to question his citizenship. But also, this is the same man who was a part of the crowd who has been on Washington, Capitol Hill, that said that they would make him a one-term president. See, their worst nightmare that they wished upon the first Black president has now become the nightmare that they are experiencing now. And it's not just the president. I am more concerned, as some of my colleagues on the panel said, about the dangerousness and the criminalization of this, because there are people who know the electoral process, like Mitch McConnell and others who are a part of all of this, who are pushing and egging the president on to fight this. It is incredible, Roland, that this president does not understand that he lost the electoral process on Tuesday. He lost the electoral process because he thought that when he told his voters, don't go vote via mail, just vote in person. What he realized is that he lost some of his voting block because everybody was not going out via person. Some people wanted to do mail ballots. He was telling his base, do not do mail-in ballots. And it's incredible now that he is now questioning the legitimacy and those standing behind him, which is even more concerning because these are people who understand the electoral process, that they would think that they're going to question the democratic process of how people, specifically the president, is elected in this country. I think this is fraudulent. I think it's dangerous. I think it's childish. And clearly, they do not know how to swallow their own medicine that they wished in 2008 that the first Black president would have a one term. No, their nightmare is being experienced in themselves now because their president is a one-term president because he sucked in his leadership, and he could not bring together communities and bring out people to vote in support of him because he was lying about what he stood for. He clearly has no standards, and I'm not surprised that he's questioning the legitimacy of the American people.
And if you want to understand how deranged these folks are, Michael, you've got Lindsey Graham out there saying that we're gonna stand with Trump and we're gonna have hearings on the illegal voting. I mean, it's just absolutely ludicrous what you're seeing from these people. But this is also why, Michael, where I keep saying I don't want to hear no bullshit about how we need to reach out to them. How we need to understand the other 70 million who voted for Trump. No. These are people who willingly voted for racist, who had no problem overlooking everything. These are people who don't care. These are people who will say and do anything. This is why I keep saying to Democrats, when you get power, you wield it. These folks have no integrity, no credibility, no dignity. The fact that very few Republicans have actually come out. Susan Collins, she dropped an announced tweet today congratulating Joe Biden on winning. Mitt Romney, he was on the Sunday shows over the weekend, and he was actually speaking to this very issue. This is what he had to say.
The election, it's not just a question of, we have questions about this place or that place. And we should note, Republican election lawyer Ben Ginsburg, who's a CNN commentator, he's looked into these complaints about voter fraud and the like, and he doesn't see any of these complaints as having merit. Election officials in Philadelphia, Republican election officials, and throughout the country say this was a clean election. Does it concern you at all that President Trump and his team are out there saying that he won and lying about the integrity of the election with wild allegations?
You're not going to change the nature of President Trump in these last days, apparently, of his presidency. He is who he is, and he has a relatively relaxed relationship with the truth, and so he's gonna keep on fighting until the very end. But I'm convinced that once all remedies have been exhausted, if those are exhausted in a way that's not favorable to him, he will accept the inevitable. But don't expect him to go quietly in the night. That's not how he operates.
Avis, let me tell you how crazy these people are, how nuts these people are. Kelly Loeffler now wants the Republican Secretary of State in Georgia to resign because he has said this was a clean election. The Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, a Republican, has said we have absolutely no evidence of voter fraud. Now they're turning on Republicans in these states. Ronna McDaniel last week charged that in Oakland County, Michigan, that there was 2,000 fraudulent ballots. The clerk, who is a Republican, came out and said, basically, who the hell are you to question my integrity, and said that is simply a lie. That shows you how dangerous and evil these people are.
Absolutely. I mean, they've shown from day one as an administration that they're willing to throw anybody under the bus, including their own people. I mean, how many times does the king of wanting loyalty has shown that he's not loyal to anybody, including his own supporters? This is the same person that left two groups of thousands of supporters out in the cold for hours after one of his super spreader events. This is the same person who keeps on firing person after person after person throughout his time in office, specifically because for some reason they may have told the truth. God forbid, about something. You know, this is the type of criminal enterprise that we have that's running the White House right now. This is not an administration. This is like some sort of crazy family mafia deal that we have that has taken over the government. And it's not just Trump. That's the worst part. It's all his other minions. The Lindsey Grahams, these career politicians, God forbid, they are the swamp, okay, who have now aligned themselves with this criminal mentality. And so I could completely agree with you. The last thing that I'm looking to do right now is to hand over an olive branch to these criminals. You don't negotiate with terrorists. That's what I think of these people as. You defeat terrorists. And so to me, the number one focus that we really need right now, beyond this debacle, is to make sure that those 2 Senate seats that are up for election in Georgia are secured. I do not want 2 Senates, a Biden and Harris administration to a McConnell-run Senate, because there is no negotiation with terrorists, okay? We need to defeat them, put a stake in the heart. And for that to happen, we need to take over the Senate. And so to me, that is my primary focus at this moment.
And Shane, that really has to be the focus, because the reality is this here. If Democrats are able to pick up the seat with Pastor Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, that would be a 50-50 tie in the Senate. That means that on any ballot, any legislation where it's a tie, Vice President Kamala Harris can break the tie. Everything about Democrats has to be focused on those Georgia seats, because we already see exactly what Republicans are going to do if they are in control of the United States Senate.
Absolutely, Roland. And I agree with Dr. Avis and what my colleague is saying on the panel. I agree that we need to focus on the Senate seats. I'm going down to Georgia following Thanksgiving to do some work with the Reverend Raphael Warnock campaign. And in return, I also support John Ossoff because I think that we need to flip those seats. It's incredibly important. And I also remember, Roland, in 2008, when Barack Obama was elected, the goal, obviously, of the Republican leadership was to make him a one-term president. And if you remember, in 2012, he won re-election, but he came back to a Congress and a Senate that it was difficult to get much of anything through. They stonewalled him. So I think we need to focus on making sure that, yeah, we got the presidency. Yes, we actually lost some congressional seats, but let's get the Senate in a majority. However, I would have to disagree with Dr. Avis on the point that all of the 70 million people who voted for the president are racist. I know, or that they are terrorists. I know some people who, in fact, are African American who voted for President Donald Trump. Now, whether it was out of ignorance or out of misunderstanding or not being clear about why they were voting for him, I do know some people who are good people who made a bad choice in the first time, in the first swing of the first election. And they didn't, make that choice this election, or some of them might have made that choice this election. But ultimately, these are good people that we should reach out to. And I do think that after we get the Senate, I do think that now we've got the presidency and we've got majority in the Congress, that we do need to focus on bringing civility back into this country. And one of the ways to do that is we have to demonstrate it. So we can't say we got control, now we're going to run you over like you did us. I don't think that.
Hold on. Why not? Because here's the deal. Let's just be real clear here. Republicans ran the hell over Democrats to put 218 federal judges on the bench. They said, damn the rules, we're going to put Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court. In fact, wait a minute. In fact, the rules of the Senate Judiciary Committee say you must have more than 2 Democrats present to vote out of committee. One was President Dick Durbin. They said, damn that, we voting anyway. So here's the deal. And this is the problem here. Democrats want to play nice by the rules. Republicans get power and say, damn the rules. Here's the piece. Since 1969, of the 18 Supreme Court justices that have been named, 14 have been named by Republican presidents. 14 out of 18. So, Shane, I'm sorry. Democrats, The other side has showed you how we gonna roll with power. And Democrats better get some guts and say, I'm letting y'all know right now, we win those 2 Senate seats and it's 50-50, we gonna run a Boston on your ass. We gonna pass bills in the House, we gonna pass in the Senate, because see, again, Democrats played nice with Merrick Garland. I said it then, I'll say it now, I will say it forever. President Barack Obama got played. Senator Orrin Hatch said, oh, Merrick Garland's a great pick, a wonderful pick. I'm like, dog, they ain't never gonna give that person a hearing. Appoint a black woman, which would have been the first in history. You would have had a black woman, all these old white men opposing a history-making sister that would have galvanized voters, that would have galvanized women. Man, wasn't nobody trying to fight for the 104th white man on the Supreme Court. They would have fought for the sister. But Democrats play checkers. Republicans are playing chess. And I'm saying, if you play the game of we gonna follow the rules, they gonna run over you all day.
But I don't think that you have to follow the rules per se to try to be civil and to try to be respectful. And all I'm saying is that we don't have to. I think that Democrats can still get in and steamroll, but it's how you steamroll. You can steamroll by cussing folks out and blasting folks, and we gonna flick you off, and we gonna do the same thing you did to us in the same way, or we can do it in a different way.
Hold up.
Bring dignity back into our democracy.
Well, first of all, what's the different way? I'm sorry, Michael, I'm confused here because Republicans have shown exactly how they lead, and you know what ends up happening? They get their way every single time, and Democrats are like, oh man, we shouldn't have done that. We should have done something different. I don't know where we go, and they stand there like, what happened?
No, I mean, I would argue that, though, because there has been a history in this democracy of both of these parties playing that same game and that same tune. And that is to push and shove down the throats of everyday people what the agenda is of that particular party. So I would argue that a little bit, Roland. There has been a history in this country of both of these parties.
Nah, we ain't talking history. We ain't talking history. We talking the last 12 years. And Michael, the last 12 years, Mitch McConnell said, Michael, in 2016, 8 Obama judges got confirmed. 8. The Republicans confirmed 5 in one day a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I should have probably said this in the first time you called on me, Roland. I want to congratulate my law school professor, Vice President Biden, for his victory. But I would probably agree with Shane if there was different set of leadership. With this set of leadership on the GOP side, both in the House and the Senate, I mean, Kevin McCarthy came out the other day and said Trump won. I mean, with that kind of mindset and leadership, you cannot bring a knife to a gunfight. We have to stop doing that. Roland, you just mentioned that about how we like to play by the rules and want to be nice and sing Kumbaya. We're not in that moment yet. And maybe we will be after the 22 election or after the elections in January when we flip the Senate seats in Georgia. But until the leadership changes, we cannot have the kind of olive branch approach. It's not going to work. It's like dealing with a bully. I mean, we saw it for the last 4 years. Until you stand up to the bully, they're going to keep bullying you. So we have to have a different approach, a much more aggressive approach. That's why I'm proud of the Vice President and Senator Harris. They're moving forward. They don't care who concedes. They don't care who they get phone calls from. They're going to keep moving forward, getting ready to take over January 20th. So I like that they're not waiting. They don't need to wait. They won. And they can't handle it. This is who they are. And so we have to have a much more aggressive, frankly, thuggish approach to this transition.
Avis, I'm telling you right now, I know folks ain't trying to sit here and talk about Ice Cube. I'm telling you right now, the theme song of the Democrats should be No Vaseline.
Okay, I will let that reference to Ice Cube go. Okay, I have to agree with that. But let me
Fine. So you don't want Ice Cube? Scarface's No Tears.
I'm cool with all of it. Okay. I'm also into what movie was it when the dude said they can't handle the truth? I mean, all of it. Applies,
Jack Nicholson,
right?
A Few Good Men.
There you go. So here, let me be very specific because I'm very specific with my language, and I'm not really into hyperbole. The reason why I called a Mitch McConnell, a Lindsey Graham, a terrorist, and a Donald Trump is because it's not just their rhetoric, as bad as it is. It's the fact that they have an entire media ecosystem that they use as a propaganda arm to spread their lies and indoctrinate their followers. They radicalize their followers through an entire ecosystem of various different media outlets. Fox is only a small part of it. They have an entire media ecosystem, which includes radio shows, which includes digital shows, which includes all sorts of individual personalities on that right wing, the whole QAnon situation, where all they do is radicalize people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and prime their followers for violence, prime their followers to believe things that are not true, okay? And that's what creates a very dangerous situation. So I'm very specific with my language. That is terroristic activity, and it leads to violence. It's already led to the highest uptick in hate crime that we've seen in this nation for decades. It's already led to a record number of hate groups now having their home right here in America. So, if you don't think, what's happening right now when they are trying to delegitimize this election is that they're also spurring up anger and hatred towards the people who are elected. Now, I do believe that the Secret Service can do their job, but this is a very dangerous game that they are playing. People could die. Let me be very specific. People could die. And that's why it is terrorist activity being propagated by terrorists who are trying to hold on to undeserved power. They are trying now to have a coup so that they can maintain power against the will of the people. That is what's going on now. And that's really how I describe it. It may be shocking for some people to hear that language utilized, but if you were to look at their methodology, exactly what they're doing and what their outcome is that they want to achieve, I don't see any other way that you can describe it.
I mean, look, look, Shane, I hear you on all that civility talk. I know what these cats gonna do. I know what's coming. Here's what's about to come. We about to hear fiscal policy, the debt. Gotta cut. Mitch McConnell's already said, you're going to have to negotiate with me for your cabinet picks.
Sure did.
Yep.
Donald Trump was like, you know what? I ain't wasting my time even going there. I'm just going to name them to interim positions. That's what Biden should do. I'm telling you right now. You cannot negotiate with terrorists.
No.
And what they are going to do, they are going to try to bring Joe Biden down to his knees. They are going to sit here and I'm telling you, they've already shown what they're going to do. I'm telling you right. Look, I know this is rough for some Democrats. I know it's rough when you talk about how you got to operate, but I just think, you know what? I think Orlando Jones said it best in the movie Biker Boys in terms of the attitude you got to have to deal with them. Go.
Stuttering and standing your ass around. Get down on your knees and bow that ass down. What?
That's how you got to operate. I'm telling you, these thugs, they don't know, they ain't playing nice.
Yeah.
McConnell,
Well,
McCarthy,
yeah.
Graham, all of them, they will unleash hearing after hearing after hearing after hearing. That's why everything has got to be on Georgia.
No, I would agree. And that's why I'm headed to Georgia. That's why I'm going to walk and going to canvass and going to work for my good friend, Reverend Raphael Warnock, and John Ossoff, because we cannot afford to lose those 2 seats. It is critical. And that is why people need to understand, everyone's been focused on the presidency, but we have to think about Georgia, because without that majority, without those 2 seats, we are going to be in a place, as you said, Roland, and the rest of the panel, that we are going to be in a place where the Republicans are going to try to deadlock every single appointment and stall every single bit of work that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to try to do. So I think I totally agree. I just believe that we can do this. We can do this in a way that is, in some level, civil. I believe we can push that agenda. We can create that path. We can fight, and we can fight with our fist. We don't have to be, go to the corner and cry. We don't have to go to the corner and sit down and take it. However, we can do this in a way that is still teaching these folks that civility is still needed. We don't need in our own communities across the country a kind of climate where the regular person who voted for Donald Trump, the regular person who thought that Donald Trump was the change that was going to drain the swamp, as he said, and all he did was fill it back up. We don't need those people in our communities across this country. We don't need that kind of division. Wherever we can try to take that division down, we should try to do it.
No, here's the deal. But here's the deal, though. Here's the deal, though. What we got to understand is what took place to black people. We need to understand the massive amounts of misinformation that was targeted at black people who were buying into conspiracy theories. A lot of brothers who were talking about the Illuminati and all that sort of nonsense. Russia knew exactly what they were doing in 2016, and then Trump and his folks came right behind it. We broke down here how the Trump campaign had a targeted plan to disenfranchise and keep black folks from voting in 2016. And so we saw exactly what was taking place. Again, hey, I'm going to give you one more Orlando Jones, Michael Brown, in terms of, again, the attitude the Democrats have got to operate with being in charge. Watch this.
You keep campaigning for this ass whooping, you're going to get elected.
That's the only way you can roll, Michael. I'm telling you. This ain't the Senate 20 years ago. This ain't Joe Biden and John McCain can oppose each other on the floor and then go out for dinner and it's all good. This is not the day when they used to have families to get together and they disagree with each other. No. I did it in 2017. I said this means war. And what these people, what the Republican Party wants to do, they want to solidify the federal bench for the next 50 to 100 years. They are focusing on a cultural battle. We're going to play you the video a little bit later. We discuss the evangelicals, the crying and the whining and the wailing that you see here. Because, see, it stopped their progress. And Mitch McConnell, I'm telling you, Michael, I'm going to call it right now. Mitch McConnell will block everything for the next 4 years, waiting for a Republican president. That's how they going to roll.
I agree. And we were on a call the other day and talking about how, wondering if, maybe it's a good idea and Vice President Biden or President-elect Biden will have a good relationship with McConnell. They'll be able to do things together, whether it's infrastructure or things that really impact both red and blue states. And there's a divide. You know, there's some people that have the thought process that Shane has, and there are other folks that have the thought process that Good Doctor has, and then we'll see kind of what happens. But I think most people, and I think most importantly, the president-elect and vice president-elect think they need to have a much more aggressive approach and taking a no prisoners approach, because the federal bench, frankly, is almost solidified. I mean, McConnell and Trump got done what they needed to get done over the last 4 years relative to vacancies. Obama, frankly, and I know a lot of Obama lovers, and we all are, I get it, but he did a poor, terrible job relative to the federal bench. Now, I understand McConnell did a lot of blocking, but in those first couple of years, when he had the Senate, he could have flooded it just like 45 did. He chose not to. That wasn't a priority. And we're getting hit with that. Now, and that's the past. Talking about now, present, and the future, so I want Vice President Harris and President-elect President-elect Biden to come to the table and say, look, McConnell is not a friend. He is not going to be helpful. So we have to legislate hard. I mean, the kind of legislation that you're going to put in front of the Senate that does help red and blue states at the same time. So these folks get phone calls from their constituents saying, why aren't you supporting that bill? Yeah, I don't like Biden, but this bill is going to help me. It's going to help my family. It's going to give me a job. It's going to make my quality of life better. This is where legislation becomes important, because the court part, you certainly can't rely on. You can't rely on McConnell opening the doors and saying, oh, great, whatever Nancy Pelosi wants to do, I'm going to pass. So we have to have strong legislation that impacts folks, whether you're in a red state or a blue state.
All right, folks, let's talk about this here. We've talked about the power of black women, also the fact that the two highest voting groups in this election were black women and black men. 91% of black women voted for Donald Trump. 80% of black men, 91% of black women voted for Joe Biden against Donald Trump. 80% of black men voted for Joe Biden against Donald Trump. A sister sent me an email. Her card is on my desk. I'm sorry. A sister sent me this T-shirt, y'all, today, and it says "Vote like a black woman," which was pretty funny. And Eva Longoria, who is a Democratic activist, she's an actress, but let's just say she got in a little hot water over the weekend when she said this on MSNBC.
Power, and does the Democratic Party understand why it's back in power?
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. I mean, I think, campaign financing needs to be looked at. I think the way in which we campaign, there were so many false ads in Florida in Spanish. Spanish wasn't regulated the same as in English. And so I do think we need to take a look at that. Again, our work is just beginning. But I want to talk about what you just said about the women. The women of color showed up in big ways. Of course, you saw in Georgia what black women have done, but the Latina women were the real heroines here, beating men in turnout in every state and voting for Biden-Harris at an average rate close to 3-1. And that wasn't surprising to us. Latinos are the CEOs of the households. They make all the financial decisions and healthcare decisions and educational decisions. Many Latinas are small business owners, and they wanted a plan for recovery for themselves, not for Wall Street. And so Trump's policies were never aimed at the struggling Latina community. And, if you look at voter suppression on top of that, how Latinas showed up, even through the closing of polling places and the shutting down of drop-off sites and new voter ID laws and long lines and driving 30 miles and all of that. And on top of that, restrictions and safety protocols of a pandemic. That spirit and perseverance that Latinas use in their daily lives, the struggle to pay their bills and the struggle to show up to their jobs and homeschool their kids and take care of their elders, that's the same perseverance and spirit they use to show up at the polls.
That did not sit well with a whole bunch of sisters. Eva Longoria got ripped for those comments, giving the impression that she was dismissing black women and said Latina women were the ones who were doing it. But this is so when she got criticized on that, this was what she posted on Twitter. I'm so sorry, and sad to hear that my comments on MSNBC could be perceived as taking credit from black women. When I say that Latinas were heroines in this election, I simply meant that they turned out in greater numbers and voted more progressively than Latino men. My wording was not clear, and I deeply regret that. There is such a history in our community of anti-blackness in our community, and I would never want to contribute to that, so let me be very clear. Black women have long been the backbone of the Democratic Party, something we have seen played out in this election as well as previous ones. Finally, black women don't have to do it alone any longer. Latinas, many who identify as Afro-Latina, Indigenous women, AAPI women, and other women of color are standing with them so we can grow our collective voice and power. Together, we are unstoppable. Nothing but love and support for black women everywhere. You deserve a standing ovation. Rosa Clemente is an activist, and she dropped a couple of videos on Instagram last night, right after this whole thing happened. She joins us right now. Rosa, glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. So you were real quick with the reaction. I saw Tamika Mallory's tweet saying, hey, we need to get together with Rosa, Carmen Perez, Linda Sarsour, and have a conversation with Eva Longoria to deal with this. Just share your thoughts about this whole back and forth in this dialogue after Eva's appearance.
Well, yeah, thank you for having me, Roland. So for people that don't know me in your audience, I identify as a Black Puerto Rican woman, not Black and Puerto Rican, but a Black Puerto Rican woman. And a lot of my scholarship and my PhD that I'm completing now is specifically looking at Black Latinos in the United States within the Black radical tradition and part of the Black long freedom struggle in this country. So when I heard that, I immediately responded because it was an anti-Black statement, right? And it is very critical that even though I identify, and there's other sisters like me who identify as Black or Afro-Latina, that I also respect the particular freedom struggle of African-American women, and not just now, but as long as they've been here, especially those that come out of enslavement. So I dropped my Instagram and it got a lot of views, and then I talked to Eva. We have a fellow sister common with us, Carmen Perez, one of the founders of the Women's March, and I had a good conversation with her. And then today, me and other sisters had another good conversation with Eva. And what I mean this, she is going to make another statement because people also didn't feel that this first statement she made was what it should be. Basically, I messed up. I'm sorry. I have things to root out. And many of us in the Latino community have to consistently be rooting out anti-Blackness. But I also say that there should be a little bit of grace given in this respect, that we talk about anti-Black racism, right? And I always tell people, especially all of those Latino people, that we're not a monolith, right? It is very true that unfortunately 33% of Latino men voted for Trump. And I actually think that's also the patriarchy. Like, I think if Joe Biden, vice president, was Cory Booker or Julian Castro, that number would have been lower, which really speaks to what we call machismo and patriarchy, not just with Latino men, but also within, some African-American men and communities like that. So I don't speak for Eva. She's going to be speaking. We're going to do some concrete things to really hone in and keep outrooting what we say in the Latino or the Afro-Latino, Black Latino community is we talk about rooting out anti-Blackness, right? Rooting it out. There's a saying in our communities, pelo malo or pelo bueno, good hair or bad hair. That all leads to why particularly those of us that are African descendants, right? often don't identify as Black, because there's not even a category for like Afro Latinos or Black Latinos to identify. We're not ever in any census data at all. So I don't know if people fully understand. There are millions of Afro Latinos in the country that not only identify as Afro Latino, Afro Latina, as Black Latino, Black Latinx people, and also put ourselves within this Black freedom struggle. And I want people to understand that. Lastly, on this point, what I would say is that as a Puerto Rican, I also have a very different experience than all my other brothers and sisters from Latin America and the Caribbean. What is that? Like our African American brothers and sisters in this country and non-binary folks, we are American citizens. So the relationship with Puerto Ricans and African Americans has always been one of solidarity. And in fact, if we really look at social justice movements in general, you're never not going to see African people with African Americans, Haitians, Cubans, Puerto Ricans representing. And I think why this comment was also wrong and anti-Black was that already progressive, but particularly African-American women, people already trying to erase at the fact that once again, it is African-American women that delivered this win. It is African-American women that helped push out this fascist. And that is very incumbent on people like me and Eva to do more work within our communities, to see that we have a history of working together. And the larger thing is, this is what white supremacy loves. So why continue to feed on that? So we have work to do in our communities, and she's committed to that work, and so am I, along with some other brilliant sisters like Carmen Perez.
I had reached out to a very well-known Black actress who was close friends with Eva Longoria last night and said, let her know. We would love for her to come chat with us here because I think it's important to also have the conversation with Black folks on Black platforms. Because there are because the thing that we do have to deal with here, and to your point, we're seeing it in the numbers. We're seeing it. The reality is you do have an issue of misogyny. Kamala Harris is the vice president. What happens if she runs for president in 2024? What happens if she runs and Joe Biden runs in 2024 and she runs in 2028? We also have to deal with the fact that we are 23 years away from America becoming a nation majority people of color. We have to deal with the reality, of race. We have to deal with the reality of white Hispanics. We got to deal with the reality of how Cuban voters think and see themselves. How the Latino in Miami is different than the one in Chicago, than the one in California, than the one in Florida, than the one in Arizona, and we have to deal with the issue of racism within the Latino community. I remember on the journalism side how they were folks really went after Telemundo and Univision by saying where are the dark-skinned Latinos? Where are they? And so these are issues that have to play out. And I remember back in 2004, I think, when Kwesi Mfume was president of the NAACP, and he went to LULAC. And he was saying then, look, we are going to have to if we're going to be the two largest minority groups in this country, we're going to have to establish relationships to better understand each other, to use our power together, as opposed to pretty much aligning with white Americans to further disenfranchise people of color.
Yeah, and you know what? On the Florida thing, I push back heavy on that. First of all, 3% of those people, Latinos, voted in Florida for Biden, right, for Trump.
First of all, the reason I mentioned Florida is because what has to happen is we have to look at Latinos not as Latinos, but in that case, Cuban Americans, Venezuelans, Puerto Ricans, folks who are Peru, folks who are from Brazil, and people. You can't just simply assume everybody is the same. I'm from Texas, and so I see Mexican Americans a lot differently than Cubans. In fact, I remember there was a guy who ran, Orlando Sanchez. He ran for mayor of Houston, and he was trying to really get the Latino vote, but it was like, dog, you Cuban, you're a Republican. You're a Cuban American who's Republican. They were like, no, we gonna go with the black guy Lee Brown, and we saw that. So
what I'm trying to say about Florida is that nobody's talking about the 84% of Puerto Ricans that are in Florida.
Right.
They actually now, Puerto Ricans, post-Hurricane Maria, we're 1.5 million in Florida. And I think I spoke to you about this during the whole thing that, it would have been great for Biden and Harris to actually talk to Puerto Ricans who still came out 84% and voted for them. They could have flipped. Puerto Ricans are the swing vote in Florida. It's not the Cubans anymore, right? In Pennsylvania, Puerto Ricans are becoming a swing vote. So what you also say that you're acknowledging, which is important, is like there's this amorphous 65 million Latinos. Well, what does that mean? And that's why I specifically always identify as a Black Puerto Rican, right? Because I know ethnically and nationally I'm a Puerto Rican. But if I want to be within conversations in race, I also have to say, well, look, even though I racialize myself as Black, there are these nuances. But what I think is still missing is that we don't talk enough about our solidarity with each other, that people are working on this and rooting this out. And actually, as someone that's been part of Black Lives Matter for the last 6 years, I am so heartened that I've been doing this work for 25 years. That's an entire new generation of Afro, Black, Latina women, Latinx folks that are like, we are here. We are dealing with anti-Blackness. We are in solidarity with our brothers and sisters. And we're also going to prove and show up from now on. So then, of course, when Eva makes that mistake, the anti-Black statement that she made, how do we deal with it? We call her. She has to have accountability. She's going to put out another statement. And I'm going to keep working in the work that I've been doing, which is to keep uplifting the fact that there is a growing number of us who identify that way. And we have to now think about the data and geographical census data that we can glean. Because in 2016, the Pew Research Center said that over a third of, quote, Latinos in the United States identify racially as Black. But we often don't hear that narrative. And honestly, I think you're one of the only few people that I've always gets the nuance to it.
Well, that's because, but Rosa, let's just be honest. The problem is because you got mainstream media filled with largely white folks. You got very few Latino, Hispanic commentators, contributors. You got very few.
They're all white passing. They don't want people like me. They don't want, and honestly, I'm not that dark, y'all. Obviously I'm African featured over in here, but yeah, they don't want us. And the other thing that's happening too is that I feel like all the media right now needs to be called out on this. Why don't you talk about the fact that more white women voted for Trump in this election than in 2020?
55%.
In 2016.
Increase of 2 points.
And that's not to say we shouldn't deal with the comment that was made. What we should be saying is like, take accountability, because that's a lot about what we talk in the movement. So someone takes accountability and then the actions speak louder than words. That's what Eva's going to do with a lot of us. And we're going to actually build out a whole series of conversations. But I think it is very interesting that the media continues to harp on where was the Latino turnout? What about the African-American men that voted for Trump? What about your white women that voted against themselves, and continue to vote against themselves? That to me is very scary, but also let's call out what we see. At the end of the day, Black and brown folks came together, particularly younger people. I might not be down with this whole Democratic Party, two-party system, but I'm sure that we got to remove that fascist from office for all of us to actually survive and thrive.
Rosa Clemente, always a pleasure. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland.
Appreciate it. Folks, got to go to commercial break. We come back. We're going to talk about white evangelicals. Oh, they love them some Trump. How do we deal with their, in the words of Maxwell, fistful of tears? That's next on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
You cannot fulfill your life if you're not willing to engage. in the tactics and strategies that makes your own life grow and helps you to build the community in which you want to live. Voting is a singular method for a people locally and regionally to govern themselves.
I'm John Ossoff, and the path to recovery is clear. First, we listen to medical experts to control this virus. Then we shore up our economy with stronger support for small businesses and tax relief for working families. And it's time for a historic infrastructure plan to get people back to work and invest in our future. We need leaders who bring us together to get this done. And that's why I approve this message.
From the day we started this campaign, we made it a priority to talk to Georgians wherever you live.
Representative Warnock, so good to see you again.
Thank you so much for doing this. So excited about your campaign.
Georgia needs a senator who will stand up for health care, who will stand up for Medicare, who will stand up for our children. We need leaders who will not forget who sent them there in the first place.
I think he'll stand up for me. We already voted for you. I think he'll stand up for everybody in Georgia.
Augusta, Savannah, Valdosta, Columbus. They may be miles apart on the map, but the challenges we face are quite the same.
We're completely behind you.
Thank you so much for running.
It's not about him. It's all about the people.
If you elect me the next United States Senator from the state of Georgia, your agenda will be my agenda.
Raphael Warnock will practice what he preaches. We're not getting that now.
I'm Raphael Warnock, and I approve this message.
Hey, well, I'm going to work hard for you, all right?
There are a lot of folks out here who don't want you to vote. And they're doing everything to keep you from voting because they don't want you to have power. They don't want you to have the money. They don't want you to have the resources to have a decent quality of life. And those are some of the people who are living in the best styles with the most money in this country. So if you don't want to have them continue to tell you what you can have, you better get out here and vote.
You saw those two commercials from John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. Evangelical voters are going to be playing a critical role in Georgia on January 5th. Now, surveys of early voters and exit polls this year showed between 76 to 81% of white evangelicals and born-again voters supporting Donald Trump. That's according to the National Election Poll and AP Votecast. Now, the conservative evangelical Christians who helped send Donald Trump to the White House 4 years ago stuck by him in 2020. White evangelical voters made up 23% of the vote nationwide and overwhelmingly favored Trump, with about 8 in 10 backing him. Let's talk with Reverend Dr. William J. Barber, President and Senior Lecturer for Repairs of the Breach, and Reverend Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, Co-Chair of the National Black Clergy Network, and also Reverend Jamal Bryant, Senior Pastor of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church. Jamal, I want to start with you for a couple of reasons. Last week we played the video. A lot of people saw the video of Paula White, and she was, praying against everybody for Donald Trump, for him to win, and then she got a lot of pushback and criticism. And so she dropped this video here as a way of talking back to her haters.
You have my number. I've got over 6,000 people that got my phone number. You've got my number, all right? You know exactly. I'll be bold enough to say how to call me. Don't be a coward and put something out on the internet when you have my number. Call me. Call me. Because we'll sit up here and I'll have you come here and we'll talk about it. We'll sit here. Don't have me call some things out. You call. Okay, I expect the world to. You guys go ahead.
Well, Jamal, she said, don't have me call some things out. Well, Paula, let me call a few things out. Jamal, on August 22nd, 2017, after she made some previous comments on Jim Bakker's show, I sent her an email and said, we need to talk. She responded to me saying she would do so when she got back out of the country. She said her comments were taken out of context. She never called. Then on November 21st, 2017, I emailed her again saying, we need to talk. She said, quote, I'm fly to Ghana this Friday. Looking forward to being back there. I return the following week. Let's talk when I return. She never called. On October 15th, 2018 at 1:15 p.m., I sent her another email saying, we need to talk, saying it has been a year since I last emailed you. She never responded. I've emailed her, I have texted her, I've called her. I know for a fact that Reverend Dr. William J. Barber has has asked to, and made it clear he would happily debate the likes of Franklin Graham and Jerry Falwell Jr. and others. They refused to debate. In fact, Jerry Falwell Jr. ordered, when he was running Liberty, ordered the police, if Reverend Barber or anybody from his group who was in Lynchburg stepped foot on the campus, to arrest them. These white evangelicals don't really want to have a dialogue with us, Pastor Jamal Bryant. They care about two things. They care about abortion, and they care about getting rid of all gay folk.
Well, you've got several problems layered, Roland. First, let me thank you for being consistent in raising your voice for us. But you've got two issues here for evangelicals who claim to be pro-life for Black babies, but they're not pro-life for grown Black people. So the evangelicals went completely mute around George Floyd, around Breonna Taylor, around Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland, Freddie Gray. They're not really pro-life. It is only at the place of those who like baby Jesus, as long as he's in a manger. But they don't like grown Jesus when he starts kicking over tables. The second issue, different from Franklin Graham with Paula White, Roland, is the Black church made her. And so there's blood dripping on our hands because we put her on stages, platforms, and programs where we never push sisters with stellar gift, capacity, skill, and credentials, but we let her float through. And now it's what Malcolm X calls the chickens are coming home to roost. And I think that last Pandora's box that opened was her calling in for African angels to support Donald Trump, when she forgot that that was the same land that he cursed as whole nations. And so I responded to that video you just posted, saying, let's have a dialogue, asking, in fact, without knowing the information you just shared, for you to be the moderator. But the Black church has got to have a real come to Jesus meeting about what we promote and understanding what is the slave Americanized religion that has so many of our people sitting in the balcony, but they're not allowed in the finance room.
Dr. Barbara Skinner, this was the video that took place yesterday at Kenneth Copeland's church in Fort Worth. Watch this.
The media said what? The media said Joe Biden's president. Ha 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 ha
Well, they laugh all day, Barbara, but he president-elect. Barbara? Barbara, can you hear me? Barbara, can you hear me? Guys, Barbara, can you hear me? All right, y'all, let me know if Barbara, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, so Kenneth Copeland finds this ought to be humorous.
What's funny right now? People are hurting. What's funny right now? Racism is still alive and well in America. What is so funny?
Well, that's the whole point. And for them, they think this is a big joke.
Well, you know, white evangelicals, Roland, were on the wrong side of slavery. They were on the wrong side of the civil rights movement. They were on the wrong side of the racial reckoning after Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, and they're on the wrong side right now. They have this this mirage about white supremacy and the good old days remaining forever, even though we're just decades away from there being absolutely no majority race. It's going to blow their minds when they get to that point, when they're no longer a majority. But they are hanging on by the thread with Donald Trump as their defense against a multiracial America and democracy and the good old days where white people control. That day is gone. It's going. And it's not even Christian. It's not even Christ-like what they have supported. They basically have lost their credibility, spiritual credibility.
They may have lost their spiritual credibility, Reverend Barber, but the reality is they still form a potent force, if you will, when it comes to the voting booth. And in fact, Reverend Barber, Pastor Rudy McKissick posted this video on his Instagram page, and I just found it to be very interesting. Reverend Barber, to listen to the reaction of white evangelicals to Biden-Harris winning.
Father, we praise you tonight. We humble ourselves tonight, Lord God. We ask you in Jesus' name, Father, that you'd forgive us as a people. Almighty God, please. God, you are pro-life. And one man is, and one man is not. Would you be pro-life for us? Jesus, Lord, one man is for Israel, one is not. You are for Israel. Lord, one man is for our military and our police, and the other is not. You are. What will we decide? What message will we send you? Jesus, forgive us as a people. We have slept.
Reverend Barber, I can't play all that. Here's what I just heard, Reverend Barber. He mentions pro-life.
Right.
He mentions the military and law enforcement. He mentions Israel. He does not mention the Palestinian people. He does not mention the fact, Reverend Barber, that Joe Biden got more military votes in these key states than Donald Trump did.
Absolutely.
To Jamal's point, he ain't talking about the issue of the death penalty of folks who've been shot by cops. And he sure as heck, and all that crying and whining, did not say nothing about the poor, Reverend Barber.
Well, you're exactly right. And he got the repentance part right, but he's doing the wrong repentance. If you go down the list of things Jesus listed in Luke 4:18 and in Matthew 25, he isn't praying any of that. He isn't praying any of the Beatitudes. Now, it is important, Roland, that I think when we talk about these evangelicals, first of all, when you look at biblical evangelicals, the white abolitionists were evangelicals. The social gospel movement was evangelical. The evangelicals we have today, they stole the term. They hijacked it during the time that many of them were, and it actually started before the civil rights movement. It started during the New Deal, and there's a book on this called The Purchasing of the American Pulpit by Kevin Cruz out of Princeton. And they actually, the corporate business world, the Chamber of Commerce, decided that they did not have the ability to shape the moral consciousness. They were upset that the social gospel was so deep in the churches. And they gave a man out of California some money, big money. And his job was to purchase the American pulpit. And inside of 10 years, he had something like 19,000. And if you trace from there to the moral majority, to the so-called religious right, they all flow out of there. That's one thing you ought to understand about this. Secondly, you know, my dear friend Jonathan Hartgrove grew up in white evangelicalism, and he's now writing some of the strongest books against it and standing against it. Young people are leaving them in droves. They don't like to talk about it, but if you read some of the other, if they're leaving them. There's a whole group of Christians now called red letter Christians who have left this so-called white evangelicalism. They work with us in the Poor People's Campaign. They just moved on. But then there's another dynamic, Doc, and that is, you know, a lot of black ministers supported Trump, supported Reagan and Bush. They supported the governor out of Ohio, Kasich. And when you look at their policies, the only difference between them is Trump's craziness. And that's something we're going to have a discussion about because we have some of that same stuff happening inside of the black church that has supported, you know, some of these Republicans whose policies were just extreme. Remember, Governor Kasich was the one that cut welfare and put people out. Look at where Ronald Reagan started his campaign. Roland, you and I have talked about this in Philadelphia, Mississippi. Look at what he did. Look at what George Bush did. George Bush left Obama the recession. Obama had to pull up out of it. We have to be careful not just to be moved by people who now say they were against Trump or for Trump, because Trump is a part of ism. And you and I were talking about it the other day. There was a decision made in 1968 by Pat Buchanan, Kevin Phillips, and some so-called white evangelicals to split the country in half for political purposes. That was their goal. And they said they would always disavow it. And if they did it, they could survive and rule the country politically for the next 50 years. Well, this is the 52nd year of that. This is the 52nd year. And what scares them the most is that is Georgia churning, North Carolina, these southern states, because that was the goal. But behind it, even beyond abortion and prayer in the school and being against gay people, that's the stuff they put out front. They used to put out front segregation. They can't do that anymore. But if you look even deeper, the candidates they support are all pro-corporate. They treat corporations like people and people like things. Every one of the judges that they put on the bench vote 90 and 98% in favor of corporation. What we have here, Roland, and I'm through, is what Ezekiel talked about in Ezekiel 22, when it talked about how the prophet, the priest, and the greedy had hooked up together, the love of money. So all that crying you just saw him doing, if you check who really is behind him, his backers, where they really are, all of these folk, it traces to the Dallas Business Club, that group of oil leaders and folk like that have put enormous amounts of resources into creating the illusion, because what they want is the white evangelical vote to go toward candidates who, when they get elected, they will primarily support corporate interests and support voting laws that suppress black, brown, and indigenous votes. That's what's really going on behind. It's deceptive, and you got to get up under it.
And Jamal, what has to happen is we have to be willing to challenge them as vigorously as possible. I know some black folks who say, oh, this is about religious liberty and churches should be able to take federal funds and hire who they want to hire. And look, there are a number of black churches that are very much pro-life, that believe in a marriage between a man and a woman, but they also say, but I can't get with your racism. I can't get with how you're treating children on the border. I can't get with it's good people on both sides. And to me, this is the moment where the black church has to frankly throw down against the likes of Franklin Graham and Ralph Reed and Tony Perkins and Paula White and say, no, we've drawn a line. Either you truly with Jesus or, as Reverend Barber said, you with corporate America. Jamal?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, yes. I think that is why, in part, it is so critical that we underscore the significance of Reverend Raphael Warnock going to Senate. It shows the black church in marketplace holding and underscoring our values and principles that are not for sale. that underrated activist Hosea Williams said, we're unbought and we're unbossed. And so isn't it critical that all of America's power structure comes back to a Black pastor? And I latched that on to the history lesson that Reverend Barber just gave us, is that the Black church can't be for sale in this hour. Is that we've got to realize that there is so much swinging in the pendulum, and that's why all eyes are going to be on Georgia. And let it not be lost on us that Reverend Raphael Warnock pastors from the sanctuary of Martin Luther King Jr. There's so many historical tropes connected to that that are symbolic of the changing of the guard, the shifting of the paradigm, and the fulfillment of the dream. And so here in Georgia, I'm excited about us turning the page on one chapter and shutting a book on another one, that the real church is going to have to show itself. Because what we have seen is while Trump has lost the election, a lot of evangelicals are losing their mind, they're losing their place, and they're losing their theological footing.
Barbara, you have been battling these folks for quite some time, and the reality is this here. Franklin Graham often questioned whether Barack Obama was a Christian. Yet he's excused the cheating behavior of Donald Trump. We've watched these people who always are talking morality and principles and morals and values and ethics completely throw that out the window for Donald Trump. Barbara, go right ahead.
We're talking about supporting the empire versus supporting the kingdom. That's what Reverend Dr. Barber was just talking about. That the Black church really threw down in Milwaukee and Detroit and Philadelphia and Atlanta for justice, for, righteousness for the poor. They didn't fall for the okie doke of 8 months, 9 months in the womb, of pro-life. That's not pro-life. They didn't fall for the okie doke of, of righteous living when you support a president who's the most scandalous, immoral ever. So I'm proud of the Black church, and I'm hearing Dr. Jamal say the same thing, that we have an opportunity in Georgia to lift up the very best of the Black church and not get into bed with white evangelicals as though they are for us. They are not for us. They are not committed. They got what they wanted. They got 200 lifetime appointments on the federal bench, not for, that were anti-civil rights.
Yeah.
They got that. They got 3 justices who will take out health care for Black people and brown people and poor white people during a pandemic. They are not in the same league with us. Now, should we build bridges? Of course, we're called to do that. But we need to be clear about the differences right now. They would look at the vote. 70% of them had no problem. Racism is not a deal breaker for them. Injustice is not a deal breaker. Caging brown children that's not Jesus. That's none of the gospel. So what Bible are they reading? To me, they have become just another political band.
Well, first of all,
they lost all moral authority.
Well, they are, and so this is the final comment on Jamal that you have to go. But Reverend Barber, what are the marching orders? What you heard, what Barber just said there. For instance, Ralph Reed has his Faith and Freedom conference every year. Very little discussion about faith, more about Republican policies. That's one of those events, Reverend Barber, where I dare say several hundred Black clergy should just show up and roll up at their conference. So what are what for you? What are the marching orders? And Jamal, I know you got to go, but I want to get yours taking this. What are the marching orders for Black clergy going into 2021, dealing with these white evangelicals in the age of Biden-Harris?
Well, all politics is local. Can you hear me?
Jamal, hold on one second. Reverend Barber, go. Then Jamal. Reverend Barber, go.
Quickly. First, we got to start, as Reverend Bryant said, in 2020. We have to have a massive move of the Black church. And I want to keep saying, We've got to reach. We understand this evangelicalism is they stole the term. We got to find those folk, and they're there that we can organize with, who are white but who are pro-justice, pro-Jesus. We got to move with them. We got to have a massive turnout, and we have to have a focus on the poor. Let me just give you a quick stat. We just found out from PBS that poor and low wealth people voted overwhelmingly for Biden-Harris. That's a fact. We also know that there are 62 million poor and low wealth voters. The majority, that's a third of the voting population. In Georgia, you have millions of poor and low wealth folk. In North Carolina, all over the South, a third of all poor people live in the South. We have to mobilize that base. That's the base Jesus went after. That's the base the prophets went after, and that's the base we have to go after as a matter of faith, and we have to present policies that are going to transform their lives. Why I love the fact that Reverend Warnock is saying, elect me, and you're going to get $15 and a union, because that means 49 million people would rise up out of poverty the moment that happened. Elect me, I serve Jesus who never charged the leper a copay, so elect me, I'm going to make sure people have health care. That can resonate even in Georgia, even in the South. And when it does, that's how we break the back of what white evangelicals and the business corporate world have done to deliberately split poor black folk and poor white folk, as Martin King said in '65. They are deliberately split by the aristocracy, by the rich class, by the bourbon, because they have the potential to form a new political base. That's what we have to do, and we can do that uniquely, just like Frederick Douglass and William Lord Garrison. William Lord Garrison was a white evangelical of his day. Frederick Douglass was an AME Zion preacher, but they came together and formed the abolition movement. We can do those same things today, and we have to.
Jamal, go ahead. Marching orders.
Yes, all politics is local, and so from here until January 5th, every cousin, neighbor, fraternity, whoever it is that you know in Georgia, call that pastor. We are really getting ready to lower in the boom for every church to be galvanized and mobilized. The Republican Party is banking on the fact that African Americans don't show up in runoff elections. And so we've got to do something here in Georgia. They're bringing all kinds of funds and strategies here to Georgia, and the black church has to have a strategy. In the incoming days, I'm calling the heads of the denominations that are residential here to roll out that strategy. But I'm asking those of you who are watching around the country, push those pastors in Georgia so that they'll be held accountable.
Barbara, real quick, marching orders.
Get Warnock in the Senate to send a message that black people are serious about their vote, no matter how much you suppress it. Go after young white evangelicals. The drop from 81% of white evangelicals for Trump in 2016 to 76% this election was young white evangelicals. Go after them. They are more akin to those who were protesting than they are to this empire building older white evangelical crowd.
All right. Reverend Dr. Barbara Skinner Williams, Pastor Jamal Bryant, Reverend Dr. William J. Barber, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
God bless you.
I want to go back to my panel here. Michael Brown, Avis Jones DeWeaver, and we're going to go back to bring Shane in. Avis, I want to start with you. I mean, the reason this is important, Avis, and I know there are people who watch it say it, I mean, why are you worrying about white conservative evangelicals? Because here's the deal. The level of intensity, Avis, by which they vote. People right now are trying to figure out what happened in this election. They're like, I don't understand. I don't understand. The polls showed this, here. Here's what the polls cannot do, Avis. The polls cannot gauge intensity and surges. They can't. 2008, Obama wins Iowa. The polls show him ahead in New Hampshire. In the final 24 hours, Hillary Clinton, when she had teared up, when she was at a town hall, the day of the election, surge. I remember I was on CNN, they were like, well, I don't understand. Lou Dowd was like, I don't understand. The poll said Obama's going to win. I'm like, dude, look at the poll. He got the number the poll said, but the poll couldn't touch the surge. That's what you're dealing with here. And so we have to understand, you have to counter that surge with our own surge. Audio. Can't hear you.
Sorry.
There you
My
go.
bad. All right, that's exactly right. That's what makes the Black vote so powerful as a counterbalance, because you do have that excitement, that loyalty, that ability to surge. With that strong voting bloc. That's the voting bloc of the right that is extremely loyal, extremely passionate, and they're coming out no matter what. And so to counteract that, that's exactly why the Black voting bloc is so especially important. And as was mentioned, in terms of this Senate race, it is true that the other side is counting on the fact that our turnout will drop because it's not a presidential election. Let me tell you, those evangelicals will be there, and we need to be able to counteract that.
Please.
Michael Brown, to you again. White evangelicals have been a huge focus of the Democratic Party, and to me, the Black church, Latinos, they are going to have to understand that voting block. And the reality is this here: these white conservative evangelicals, they are targeting Latino voters through the Catholic Church because of the Catholic Church's strong opposition to abortion. I don't understand why Democrats don't counter that the Catholic Church also is strongly opposed to death penalty.
Yeah, and we were talking a little bit about this earlier relative to following the rules and bringing a knife to a gunfight and those kind of things. If you notice, obviously, I know folks know that churches are non-for-profit institutions. In the white churches, they don't seem to care about that. That line isn't even blurred when it comes to politics. In the African American church, they follow the rules. The pastors are very careful about, not endorsing from the pulpit and doing the things that would put their non-for-profit status in jeopardy. When we saw just from those clips you showed earlier from the white churches, it's a whole different. They don't seem to care. And so when you're up against that kind of mentality, it is very difficult to try to figure out how to combat it more and less than compete with it. Because when you have, when the playing field is not level, and I get it, clearly, all of us that are of color always have to face the rules being different and obviously being targeted, and you have to deal with the consequences of that. And the white church is not really concerned about it. They know their local politicians who think like they do, go to those same churches, will protect them. Not to say that, folks won't protect the Black church, but obviously the targets on our backs are much different. So, Roland, I think it's just it is very difficult when you touched on the polling matter. We can, obviously the polling was a little off, but it may get a little closer as more of these votes are counted and the the president-elect's lead expands. However, and you can fix the analytics, you can fix the mechanisms on how you poll. The one thing you can't fix is if somebody has a clipboard at your local grocery store or calls you up on the phone at home, that you lied to a pollster. You may not tell them the truth. You may not want people to know you support a racist bigot because you don't want people looking at you cross-eyed. But then you walk in that booth and you pull the lever for that racist bigot when you told the pollster, no, I'm going to support the former vice president. So those are some of the institutional things. I don't know if that part is fixable.
Shane, when we look at Georgia, I do believe that you have to have a massive mobilization through churches. And if there's ever a moment for the Black church to redefine itself and to restore its previous days of glory, there's no better place and no better time to start than Georgia.
Oh, absolutely, Roland. I mean, Georgia is ground zero for the country, but it's also ground zero for the Black church in this moment. And it is going to be imperative for the churches across the state of Georgia, especially since a well-known African-American pastor who's respected across this country and leads arguably the most prominent African-American church, Ebenezer Baptist Church, in the context of history, in Georgia and really across this country, it is going to be imperative that the Black church understands its mandate in this moment to be the prophetic voice in calling for the kind of equity and equality and justice, but really the freedom that needs to ring in this country. And it is through the leadership of what we can get out of this the Senate race that will be taking place. So yes, I agree 100% that ground zero in America will be the Senate races in Georgia, but the ground zero in Georgia for the Senate races will be the Black church, and African American pastors need to understand, and the Black churches in that state need to understand, and across this country need to understand. Our mandate in this moment is to be that prophetic voice. You know, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once preached from that pulpit that Reverend Raphael Warnock preaches from every single Sunday. So it is going to be critical that not just Ebenezer, but churches across the state, and we know many are already mobilizing, start getting out there and doing that mandate of registering voters, hitting door to door. We're going to need, we're in a pandemic. We wear our masks, we social distance, but we've got to get out there. And that is why I'm headed to Georgia, because it is critical that we touch people, feel people, and the church does what it always, the Black church does what it always has done, which is bring a level of comfort and a level of understanding and a level of solidarity in our community that it always has been. It was the place where we gathered and we sung our way out of slavery. We are going to need to sing and preach and push our way spiritually into this freedom that we are pushing for in getting the Senate where it needs to be, so that we can really get our country back in position to really do the things that our communities need across this country. And it's going to be, ground zero is going to be the Black church.
Got it.
The Senate races.
Folks, we all often talk about these stories. People always say, oh, a few bad apples. I keep saying what happens with a lot of these white cops. In Marshall, Arkansas, Police Chief Lane Holland has resigned following a strong rebuke from City Mayor Kevin Elliott, condemning his comments made on the conservative messaging site Parler. Here's some of Holland's post. This is what he wrote. When this is over and Trump is president for 4 more years, do not go to sleep. Do not forget what these Marxist Democrat bastards have tried to do. When you see one in public, get in their face. Do not give them any peace. Throw water on them at restaurants. Push them off sidewalks. Never let them forget they are traitors and have no right to live in this republic after what they have done. He then said, death to all Marxist Democrats. Take no prisoners, leave no survivors. Well, the mayor was not happy at all. He issued a statement saying that he reached out to the legal folks of the city and said, yeah, you got to go. Now, this dude also posted an illustration of former President Barack Obama, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi in orange prison suits with the caption, I pray all those in that picture hang on the gallows and are drawn and quartered. Shane, first of all, Avis, here's a guy who was he was fired. He was the police chief. The police chief.
Well, first of all, thank goodness he was fired and not allowed to resign, because that's the type of stuff that normally happens with these situations, even if it goes that far. But, you know, that says something. You're right that he's the police chief. It makes me wonder, what is the culture of that police department? What are the people who are working under him likely to subscribe to in terms of their beliefs, and how do those beliefs play out in their actions when they interact with the community? You know, this is the problem that we have with policing in America. We don't want to acknowledge the fact that there are very toxic, racist, and dangerous people who are hiding behind a badge each and every day and who have a license to kill in this country. And even though for years we've known that these organizations have been penetrated by white supremacist organizations, nothing has been done to root it out. You know, this guy is talking extreme political views, not necessarily white supremacist views, but either way, he's talking about people and doing it from behind the badge. I'm glad he was discovered, and I'm glad he was fired.
What you're dealing with here, Shane, you're dealing with an increasing number, we're now seeing it because people are public, these white police officers who work in law enforcement, who are racist, who are sexist, who are homophobic, and these are the folks with badges and guns.
No, it's obviously always concerning when we have police officers that are patrolling our communities. And mind you, they're patrolling our communities every day that are not rooted out. It is a real issue. And this is why we really, President Obama tried to create the 21st Century Policing Task Force and really try to put new mandates and look federally and across the map. But I think that locally, in our local jurisdictions, we need city governments, county governments that are willing to fire these officers when they hear them, see them, or catch them making statements like this. They need to be immediately fired. And, you would never believe, well, actually you would, that there are people who would argue the firing of an officer for this kind of language. It's because there is a certain rule for those with the badge and with the gun on their waist versus those in our communities. And it needs to be rooted out. It's extremely concerning that an officer with a badge and a gun was able to say something like this and have this perspective. And we need more police officers in our departments calling out this bad behavior when they see it. It doesn't start with a Facebook post. It starts with a thought, and it translates into a Facebook post.
Michael Brown.
Agreed. I mean, I don't know if I can add anything different from what Avis and Shane have said and what you have said all the time, Roland, and you've heard me say it numerous times. Relative to police misconduct, until elected officials have the courage to put their pensions, that qualified immunity on the table, folks are going to not think twice about shooting and dealing with black and brown folks. You have to threaten their livelihood, and not just their livelihood of the present, but their livelihood for the future when they retire, or if they have to pay their own legal bills. There are certain things you have to do. For example, I forget the gentleman, the gentleman's name, coming around the car, and the cops were chasing him, and they claimed they had tased him at first.
Jacob Blake.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. That they had 19 seconds to say, you know what, this may not be a good idea. Let's tase him again, or let's tackle him, or whatever you would do besides shooting him in the back 7 times. And if you have that thought, oh snap, I got to pay my own legal bills, my pension's going to be snatched, and I'm not going to have qualified immunity, folks will think twice. But elected officials have to have the courage to put those issues on the table. Until they're on the table, I'm sorry to say we're probably going to continue to have these kind of acts of violence.
All right, Shane, Michael, and Avis, I certainly appreciate all of you being on our panel today. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Roland.
Thank you.
All right, folks, got to go to commercial break. We come back. Fit, live, win. Struggling to lose weight? How to get your mind right and do it holistically. That's next on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
The most important thing is it's like, know your damn county. Know your damn county. Know your town. Know your community on the voting tip. Know where your kids is going to school before they zone them out. Right. Know that, all right, man, I done paid this money this time. I don't want to pay a damn bit of tax, but the tax I do pay is going to pay this much. It's like, so at least know that much before you try to catch and say, well, I want to just follow the Super Bowl of politics. It's like, yo, man, the local, sleepy, boring ass game in the Sandlot, you better be and figure out what that is.
To me, local politics always seemed to, in my mind, match up with what I was seeing nationally. If you didn't find a way to know somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, then you couldn't get anything done. And that's really what to be political is. That's what you're doing. You're building relationships. And, African Americans have had to, face up to the fact that In order to get anything done in this world, we have to work with the system that's there.
Raphael Warnock grew up in a house full of brothers and sisters. His parents taught him the value of hard work, like me.
Like me, he was first in his family to graduate from college and went on to earn a PhD.
He thinks insurance companies should not be allowed to discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions, like me.
Like me, Reverend Warnock knows that both parties in Washington could use some moral leadership.
I'm Raphael Warnock, and I approve this message because it's time we had a senator who put Georgians first.
I'm John Ossoff, and too many are struggling to afford prescriptions. One change in the law would make a huge difference. See, Medicare is America's biggest buyer of prescriptions, but the drug companies bought off Congress, and they made it illegal for Medicare to negotiate lower prices. It's straight up corruption. Fighting corruption is my job. I approve this message because I'm not taking donations from corporate PACs, and I won't let the drug companies rip us off anymore.
All right, folks, anyone who has struggled to lose weight know that it's not just about the physical. It affects all of you, mind, body, and spirit. In order to lose weight and keep it off, it's important to focus on proper nutrition and exercise, not just one or the other. That's where the holistic approach comes in. Joining me now is health and wellness expert, Dr. Tabitha Carr. All right, Dr. Tabitha Carr, what do you mean by the holistic way? What does that even mean?
That basically means we focus on your mind, on your body, and your spirit. As a naturopath, I believe that the body has an innate ability to heal, and it's up to us to really take 100% responsibility for our life so we can heal.
Okay, so does that mean that does it address folks who have anxiety, who worry, and so when you talk about the mind can heal the body, okay, how?
So our hormones work together. You know, a lot of times I explain to women how it's our hormones that is making us sick, basically causing us to have productivity challenges, challenges with energy, challenges with anxiety, with stress, with mental capabilities and brain fog. And it all works together because when we talk about hormones, we're just not talking about estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Your body has over 50 different hormones. We're talking about insulin, which controls blood sugar. We're talking about leptin, which is your fat burning hormone. We're talking about cortisol, which is the hormone that helps us cope with stress. So it's all connected when it comes to our hormones.
So there's someone saying, okay, got it. All right, my mind is right. But what does that mean, having my mind right in order to lose weight? So, okay, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can sit here and say, I think my mind is right. How do I know my mind is right?
It's about mindfulness. Being healthy and eating right is about mindfulness, and it's a choice. It's something that you choose to do. Now, my health journey started when I was just 16. I was put on my first blood pressure pill at the age of 16 and was a woman size 20. So, of course, I wasn't really aware what was going on. And when I asked the doctor, why am I on blood pressure pills? She said, so I don't have a stroke at 30. And I went on to have problems with blood sugar, blood pressure, being on 3 different blood pressure pills at the age of 30. And I started having panic attacks. I went through depression, and I ended up in the hospital going into 30 years old. And at the age of 35, because all of these issues were not addressed, my ability to have children was threatened. So at that point, I said, enough is enough, because number one, I have 3 women in my family who had hysterectomies by the time they were 40, and I didn't have any kids. So I had to come to a mindset and tell myself enough is enough. I want to have kids. I want to be healthier. And I ended up going to school. I lost 80 pounds, came off all of my medication, and ended up going back to school and helping women. So for me, it was that trigger. It was that, not being able to have kids that really made me change my relationship with food and want to change my relationship, period, because I was diagnosed as a pre-diabetic.
But even if say we talk about mindfulness, I mean, I need to know what's really even healthy, because you're operating now in a world where stuff has diet on it, has low fat on it. I mean, hell, you eat fruit. People tell you don't eat too much fruit because there's sugar in it. They tell you don't eat this, don't eat that. Some folks like, you know what, man, there's all these damn rules. I just got to give up.
You're right. And that's the thing. When I was almost 300 pounds, I had been on a diet every single day of my life. And every year I started out on a different diet, from the Aikens diet to the cabbage soup diet. But those don't work. It does not work. It is about healthy eating. It's about really changing your relationship with food and realizing what your body really needs to flourish and nourish. And that is nutrition. And that is why we are so sick, because we're not getting the nutrition that our body needs. And when we are overindulging on things like sugar and processed foods, what it's doing, it is having a reaction to our brain, and we are desiring food. We are eating more, and it's triggering these hormones that's increasing our appetite.
Okay, so where do we start? Somebody out there right now is watching. They're like, okay, where do I start?
Where do you start? Okay, remove sugar. That is the first thing you should really remove from your diet is sugar. Sugar is addictive. Sugar is killing us. Sugar is causing us to lose limbs, to lose kidneys, to have mental issues as we get older. It's sugar. Cut out sugar. And you have to take baby steps when you're really working on losing weight. It's not about going all in. Let me tell you, I used to try to go all in and start exercising and cutting my calories. And what that did was it stressed my body. I had a headache. I was low energy and I could not continue. And by the time February, March came, I was done. I was through. And when January came back up the next year, I gained even more weight than what I weighed the year before. So start with sugar. Start with cutting out sugar. Start with increasing your water intake. And I'm talking about half your body weight in water in ounces. And of course, what do we hear every day? Exercise. Exercise burns sugar. Exercise increases serotonin. Serotonin is your feel-good hormone. Serotonin is the hormone that's going to help you cope with stress. Serotonin is that happy hormone that makes you feel good, and exercise increases that hormone.
All right. How can folks reach you to get more information? How can folks reach you to get more information?
How can they get in contact with you?
Yes.
goodgirlchocolate.com, livingandlovinglife.org. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at Good Girl Chocolate and on Facebook at Good Girl Chocolate. We have a 21-day fast coming up in January. It's totally free. It's in my group, so watch out for that.
All right, then. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Take care. All right. Thank you very much, folks. We got to go. Before we go, don't forget to join our Bring the Fuck fan club. Every dollar you give goes to support our show and what we do. Let me give a shout out to Jay Williams and L. Williams for their support. Coretta T. Let's see here. Azalea Dubose. We have Juanita Hyman, David Shohan, Marsha Ogletree, Franklin Cleveland, Allen Consulting and Research, Quincy Norris Jr., Grass Ceiling Inc., we have C and V Mooney, Bridget Wright. We have Hakeem Amani Sadiq. Thank you so very much. Jerlene Hobbs, Larry Hobbs. Thanks a lot. Valerie Hockaday, Denise Hofstetter, Deborah Simmons. We have also Michelle Cheek. And let's see here. We got a note here. Roland, keep on speaking. Truth to power. Black power, black freedom. That's Franklin Cleveland. We got a note here. Somebody said, thanks for your great work. You and your team provides for our education and support of African American everywhere. Applaud you for your respect and repeating the needs to keep it real. When you producers need some fillers for your program, you might want to check about the 50-year lease for the 3 golf courses in the district. Okay, we'll take a look at that. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Somebody sent a happy birthday card. Just a little note to let you know how much I appreciate you. Love Next Day Election Show. Also love the people who appear on the show. Kelly, Malik, Mustafa, Michael, Lauren, Victoria, Miss Redbone. I think he meant Julianne Malveaux. That's what Method Man call her. Eugene, Monique, and the brother Tyrone Davis sing about in his 1960s record, Can I Change My Mind? He always gets mad, turns off computer, and comes back later. He's talking about Derek Holly. So I appreciate that. And then let's see here, another card here. Larry and Julian Hobbs, God has gifted you in so many ways, celebrating his goodness that shine through the things you do. Love your show so much. Real black informative info. I love you on TV One. Just found out you have a digital show. May God continue to bless you. Folks, I appreciate that. All of you support what we do. Thank you so very much. You can support us via Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal.me/R Martin Venmo.com/RM Unfiltered. Also, you can send a money order to New Vision Media, NU Vision Media, Inc., 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C., 2006. Y'all can give right there on YouTube as well. And we'll appreciate every dollar that you give to support what we do. Today, Joe Biden unveiled his COVID-19 task force, of course, and it was only fitting that you got Ben Carson, who sits on the actual task force for Trump, and he gets COVID-19. Thank God for new leadership. Folks, I'll see you tomorrow. I got to go. Take care. Holla!